Hello, everybody who might be listening to this. Again, yes, I am talking, but this is a good reason because I am now talking about my main villain, Dark Star. The main antagonist, well, there's technically one more, maybe three main villains, not counting Doomsday. But, yeah. I'm talking about Darkstar and what he actually is, explaining, because if I do it with text, that will be too long. But a video being longer is actually perfect. And the reason why, to make it more longer so then people can watch it longer, but hey, you can hear me chat and actually be happy of myself. Okay, Darkstar, the man who basically had seen his papa died in front of his eyes, and maybe the spelling with that whole entire thing about Darkstar kind of fucking sucked. But okay, his backstory. I'm gonna make it very simple. So, he was a kid, he loved music, and he had listened to a very famous person of sea shanties. They're my favorite music. And then he got a guitar and singed it to his family, mimicking of that same person getting it right. And then that same music became magical and it was beautiful. Now seeing he has a mimicry abilities, he was perfect to be a ancient one known as storytellers. There we go. I kind of pulled that out of my head, trying to get the right words out, but yeah. So now he can tell long stories of history. So he learned his abilities with the help of his family, but more bigger help with his papa. He did have the same abilities, but they were different. They were combat-based abilities, but he always wanted to be a Dark Star, but that's his papa's name because he was one of the first starlights who got born from the beginning of the world, or the beginning of life itself. And so Dark Star, his papa, was the first, with many more, up to, let's say, 500. And they went to planet to get a good size, and they found a very big planet with a very newborn star. So they set camp on that planet, and well, life continued, and then they made one of the high elite Star Watchers. Dark Star is one of the elites, one of the founders of their homeworld. And Starlight, the main villain, wants to be a Dark Star. And he didn't want to be a storyteller, or he didn't want to be a Star Watcher. And the true meaning of a Dark Star is Starlight. My God, I'm jambling up my tongue right now. A Star Watcher watches over a planet gathering information until the planet dies or the people has no more information they will leave it alone and never come back. And they fouled up all the information, seeing which ones are important and which ones are not. I'm kinda talking of lore too long, but yeah, okay. So Starlight was learning about his abilities with the help of his papa, and he was one of the originals, and he wanted to be a Dark Star, known as the Dark Stars, who are one of the protectors of the planet, and also who praise a god named Galactus. Kind of pulling things out of my brain of trying to fill up the name gap because I'm bad with names. So, this ancient being of a god is a dragon. Doesn't make sense because I wanted to be making no sense at all. Anyways, later on he developed his abilities of mimicry and his mimic abilities to being basic, to basically being one-on-one, being absolutely perfect. Now seeing his abilities of mimicry are now slowly being mastered and actually slowly becoming a true potential of just full-on mimicry of other people's abilities. And one time he had mimic a very ancient god of Zeus, the god of thunder. And he had basically mimic his abilities perfectly, down to the basics and down to the most hardest things he basically did. So they truly see his true potential of actually being a storyteller and a Dark Star. And I'm gonna wrap this up. So later on, a Dark Star, his papa, after he was searching around in the library, and then he found the ancient tablets of the past and the beginning and the end, known as this new entity called the End or the Void. This ancient being who wants to cause the death of the world. And he knows all the secrets of the universe. And one of them is the true purpose of a god. They were supposed to help anything of sentience and try to make it evolve. Right now, in that time, all the gods were doing none of that, including the originals, the new gods, and the demigods. They were doing nothing. And so, and I have no idea if this lore actually sounds good, but this is still, for some reason, still the beginning. And so, Dark Star had slowly created a faction named the Dark Legion. And he had slowly gathered up people, including the most famous forge master who created every single legendary weapon. He had told the forge master everything from that tablet And after his time of making the weapons are now pointless, he also went against the gods. But he mostly kept it as a secret because he also had 2 apprentices. He didn't want to lead them into a battle. He believed they will die. And so he will not tell them why he became a traitor or the villain. And so he had forged a armor for Darkstar, his papa, to be in the war. And then Darkstar had given him a very powerful substance, and this was the Black Death. Spoilers! The Black Death is the ancient forger, and he was insanely powerful. And so, the war had begun, and the ancient forger had killed up to 5 gods, 5 demigods, and injured Zeus. And Darkstar had killed a lot of innocent people because of in a rampage. Eventually, he did got killed as the Black Death, or the Plague Knight, had basically did died, but he had been splitting apart of his armor, who now has his soul and his memories. And the Black Death, the Black Death had also split apart the human body, who went to the dead of space to never be seen again. Darkstar had fled, but he knew he was going to die. But sadly, Starlight was there, seeing his papa slowly dying. Darkstar told him everything, and then told him to just do not be in this fight, and don't ever walk the path as I had. And he looked beyond the stars, and he felt regret, but he felt happy he did something right. And then he died. And now Starlight, now taking his papa's name and the name of Darkstar, he took the name, and now he wanted to be the most powerful villain and became the most respected villain. So he went to go be a god, because this time he was a teenager. He ranked and ranked and ranked, but one person he had mostly talked to the most, who was going to be the replacement of, I do not know the type of god this is, but this type of new demigod is all about love. He did have some friends, but he did had more friendship with the new replacement for the god of love. They hanged out the most, and because they were teenagers, they did fell in love, but he did know this was kind of a distraction. They still did love each other, and so they kind of split apart. They did met each other from time to time, and he did kind of tell his revenge story, and she was fully into it, of actually killing the gods and trying to put order, of trying to help the people of the other worlds. He got powerful, he had mimic everybody's abilities, and he made it to the top. He was going to become a god. And the one thing he was looking for was the pearl of creation and the pearl of destruction. And here's a basic of my magic rules. As for basic magic, is called light magic, known as creation. And the other hand is dark magic, known as destruction. They will destroy and just obliterate, incinerate, and just, yeah. Kind of want to be like a yin and yang of light being... Gosh dang it, I have a brain fart right now. Light being creation, darkness is destruction. They cannot exist of each other. They cannot exist with each other, but they have to. Gosh darn it. Okay. They're the yin and yang. They cannot exist without each other. Creation keeps on going, but about destruction, it keeps on going with an unending cycle. With destruction, it will have nothing. But if both exist together, it's in harmony. But then there's another one named Shadow, who is also named Harmony. But with this is kind of mix of light and dark. And it's using both to create a shadow, who, of course, it's called Unity. And yeah, so Darkstar now shown his true motives, and he had now mimic everybody, and he had mimic everything of what they did, their abilities. But also, with this mimic abilities, it has positives and negatives. With the positive, he can mimic everything about them, including their fighting style. But with the downsides, with those same abilities, he also gets the downsides. But with the help with the creation pearl, this gives him more strength, but also expands his brain to add more. He was also want to have the destruction pearl, but they instantly grabbed it and kind of ran away, that including the gods who took the destruction pearl, and he caused havoc, and then he fled. Then he was recreating the Dark Legion, getting people to join his forces, and basically recreating the Dark Legion from the past. But in the past was actually Funtime Puppet's dad, who was one of the beginning heroes, including Funtime Puppet's mom. They were not into a relationship yet until they became teenagers. Right now, Darkstar still causing havoc, and now he's a young adult. And Funtime's dad and the heroes he had now teamed up with their legendary weapons. If you go back, watch the video, The one with the gauntlets is electricity. The one with the spear is kind of confusing, but I gave the the character to see through time and basically can time it right of their attacks. The person with the arrow can use the bone arrow to strike down and can whistle. Reference. She can whistle to move the arrow, but she can use her bow and arrow to make it more powerful and can pierce through anything. With the legendary sword, it only had... It was basic. It can be long, it can be short, but yeah, that's the ancient weapon. But anyways, and then Funtime Puppet's mom, who got him the axes. They were dark magic. Yes, it did corrupted her body. A good way and a negative way. The negative was it was eating her alive slowly. But with the help of the light of recreating her body, it was unable to eat more. And so she can live the rest of her lifespan. But with the positives, she was insanely fast. But also with the chains, she can extend or also throw them, kind of like Kratos, another reference with different weapons. But if she wants to throw them as like throwing axes, the chains will go away, and if they hit something or didn't hit anything, they reform and go back to her arm. But anyways, this was the first hero group. And then they were trying to stop the Dark Legion. They did it really well. And then this was the final end. And Darkstar had dominated them. And so, this was also the new recruitment of the Lost Knight, known as the Knight. This was the character this is the character who had brown armor, but also this character was a psychic. And his weapon is kind of made of a material, but I will explain that later in another video. I'm trying to get this done because I believe this is now too long. Every hero had been mostly very injured and close to death. But the only two people who were not injured was the Lost Knight, known as the Knight, and Funtime Puppet's mom, who is slightly injured with one leg. And Funtime Puppet's dad was still standing, even if he was heavily injured, including missing an arm. But he was still holding his sword proudly and still had a very big smile. He was not wearing his hat, but his wife, yes, they were now young adults, and she had now married with him. But anyways, she had his hat, and he told her to run off and get the others for help, and he was going to finish the fight. So she did, grabbed the others and ran. into a dimensional portal, and it was closed. And now he was there, by himself with Darkstar, who was insanely powerful. But with a big smile and the sword now pointing at Darkstar, he was proud to be a hero, and he was proud to finish the fight. He jumped forward to Darkstar. Every slash had connected, and Darkstar was, well, of course, blocking, but he did hit some weak points. And then he just dropped his sword and just combined every magic ability he had known into one hand and straight up punched him into his gut. Into like punching him down to the planet, making the planet just destroy itself. But this incredible sacrifice he had created a new magic type, Time Stopper, who will cover somebody into crystallized stone, pausing them in time for all eternity. But because of this immense power he had done to his own body, and he was actually close to death, he still had a big smile, and he was proud to himself. As, of course, he died in the ash. Yeah. And that's why Darkstar is all the way in the future, in the modern age, with Funtime Puppet, Nightmare Killer, and Asher, the main heroes. And Funtime Puppet is now the new hero, and now he accidentally released Darkstar, and Darkstar was also now a full-on adult. And now he caused havoc, reforged everything, made alliances, and became, once again, a dangerous threat. So yeah, that's the story, kinda, of Darkstar. And just tell me what you think about Darkstar. Like, is his story boring? Does his abilities are lame? But just, yeah, I really think his abilities are pretty good. Like, yeah, like, how does he have so much power? And I kind of linked into him with mimicry, and his mimic abilities were pretty powerful. They're insanely strong. Like, they're down to the core perfect, including the downsides. But, yeah, like, that's it. I believe the next one, or next video I actually want to do and talk about is Funtime Puppets, Dad and Mom and the Heroes, Dr. X, and also Funtime Puppet, the Nightmare Killer, known as Dark Shadow, and Asher. That is the end, and hopefully you all hear me clearly. And yeah,